we're going to shine a light on the spots of boxing that don't necessarily get the attention from more mainstream outlets and podcasts and stuff like that. So if you want to hear about a fireworks show that went awry and the ring got lit on fire, well, this is the podcast for you. And if that's not something you're here for, that's okay. There's no worries. There are plenty of other boxing podcasts out there that cover all those popular subjects. Check those out, but that's not necessarily what we're going to do here. So if you're up for the wild world of Tim Boxeo and the whole world of club boxing, we have a good show planned for you guys today. Let me introduce the man of the hour, the TC Boxing Hall of Famer. The most reliable results for helping people find a way, any way to watch boxing. Really, the one-man PR firm for everything club boxing. That is Tim Boxeo. Tim, how's it going?
It's going great, Angelo. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Good. It's still hot. I don't know how you guys feel where you live, but it is still very hot where I live.
Yeah, it's pretty hot here too. I think it's about to cool off, but it's 90s. It's hot. It's hot. We need to heat up the boxing world here a little bit. We've been in a dry spell here, so
we have been. We have.
The rest of the year is about to get busy, but it's been slow.
Well, you mean even in the world of club boxing, it's getting slow?
Yeah, last week was a bit of a disappointment.
Oh.
Well, Saturday night when we had the Mighty Trigon for BYB Extreme Bare Knuckle Boxing take center stage live and free on YouTube, even so much that regular boxing people were saying, why is that ring a triangle and what's going on there? I might watch that. It's a slow weekend everywhere.
I feel like,
yeah.
Well, we did at the start of the NFL season, college football starting to get into swing. But even with all of that, you see a ring that's shaped like a triangle. Like, how does that not pique even the most casual of boxing fans' opinion, or not opinions, but their interest?
Yeah, no, that's true. A fair point. Yeah.
All right.
You don't see that very often.
Well, so we have an interesting story of the week this week. So for those of you that don't know, actually, I'll let you introduce I'll let you set it up.
Okay, yeah, I'll set it up and then you jump in. So, yeah, we figured just do something a little bit different this week. We'll still touch on a couple of things that have been staples of the show, but for our story of the week and recap of the previous week's action, we're going to replace it instead with this topic. And I was doing my usual boxing podcast listening rotation after the weekend, and one of the boxing podcasts that's in my rotation is a show called Boxing by Sunday Puncher. Have you ever heard of that, Angelo?
I've seen it around before.
Okay, all right. So that's Angelo's podcast if you haven't listened to it, and they've been on the grind for some time now. And a bunch of other guys also join in on the show, and everybody does a really nice job. And I've got the episode that I'm about to mention linked in the show notes. So I'd strongly recommend you go listen to this episode because I had a lot of fun with it. And this most recent episode was entitled 3 or More Losses Fantasy Draft. So Angelo, and on this particular show, Lex and Matt, did what I thought was just a highly entertaining show where the guys set out to start their own promotional company. And in doing so, this is the crux of the show, held a draft where each of the three of them drafted 5 fighters. Now, the fun caveat of it was that these fighters must have 3 or more losses. So I'm just going to give you the cliff notes here as we continue, but I would, again, go back and listen to the show because you'll really enjoy it.
See, let me just jump in real quick here. So Tim is not the kind of guy that is going to message me after the fact that I say or do something and criticize me or tell me anything like that. That's really not what, as you could tell, Tim's like the nicest guy in the world. But
I don't think I've ever done that on any of your shows.
For sure. But also, like, in general, you're a really nice guy. You don't do any of that stuff. So I would never expect that. But then Tim messaged me after the podcast and was like, oh, what were you guys doing? And I was like, what? Tim took issue, and that's how we started this. And by the way, Tim, I just want to thank you for mentioning that. Like, this is not planned. This is nothing like that. Tim legitimately has a beef, so we're going to settle it on the podcast.
I just thought it was really, really fun, and I was offended that I wasn't invited to the show. I mean, we're on, me and you are doing a podcast.
Uh-huh.
This is episode 21, actually. And did I get invited? No, I did not. So, shout out to Lex and Matt. I'm definitely, whatever the hierarchy is over there on that show, I'm definitely behind Lex and Matt. So I've got that established. Okay, so this show is going to be our show right now is going to be a little lighter than usual. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to jam 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag. There's so much going on in the club boxing world. So, I'm not going to run down the whole show for you guys, but it would be worthwhile to give you a 500-foot view of how the show ended up on the Sunday Boxing by Sunday Puncher episode. That'll give us some framework for the one-man draft we're about to hold here with me. Okay. So Angelo, Matt, and Lex held a draft with 5 rounds, and they did a snake order, right? So if you went last in the round, you went first in the next round.
Yeah.
Angelo had the last pick in round 1. Right?
Yeah.
And who had the first pick? I forget if it was Matt or Lex.
Matt.
Okay, Matt had the first pick, and then Lex. So I'm just going to read off. We're not going to go round by round or anything. Like I said, you got to check the show out. But I'm just going to read you how the teams ended up for the 3 guys, if that's cool. And without commentary, we'll just kind of zip through that. But I'll start with Matt, since he was first up. So Matt's team, 5 fighters, comprised of Sean Porter, Chuck Latito, Roman Gonzalez, Danny Garcia, Sris Aket Sor Rungvasai, the Rat King from Thailand, and John Rael Casamayor. Pretty solid.
Almost.
Sorry, Casemiro. Sorry. Good grief. Okay, Casemiro. Jeez. Okay, and then Lex went. Pretty solid first pick, Manny Pacquiao. Remember, we're starting off our own promotional company here, right? So there's a balance between, getting some guys that you can win with and making money. And we're walking a fine line here. So Lex says Manny Pacquiao, Adrian Broner, Amir Khan, Tony Harrison, and Joe Smith Jr.
Yes, the junior is important.
I'm sorry, Lex. Yeah, I didn't mean to laugh at Joe Smith Jr. There's nothing funny about that.
WBO champion.
Yeah, world champion. Okay, all right. And then Angelo, pick number 3 in round number 1. Derek War Chisora. Pretty solid. I think that was my favorite pick of the whole first round. Your Dennis Ugas, Gabe Rosado, Josecito Lopez, and then if he can actually make it into the ring, Sergio Martinez. Okay. Okay. Now, the guys aren't here to defend themselves, but let me just make one piece of commentary on each of your guys' picks. How about that?
Sure.
So, Derek Chisora, I thought, was a fantastic pick. Really, really, really good. I think, he's a household name in the UK. He's going to make tons of money in a heavyweight fight. That's solid. And like I said, Sergio Martinez, if he can actually walk into the ring, maybe you've got opportunity for him there. Why Sergio Martinez? That was it. I wanted to ask you about that.
Because he has 3 losses. He's been undefeated since losing to Miguel Cotto. Whether or not his knees work was not a consideration I had. I was thinking of a cash grab where I could just make Rosado versus Sergio Martinez in what would be a mismatch of 2011, just bring it into 2021. Like, I don't care if you're 10 years too late. You might as well still do it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And he's on a winning streak.
Correct.
He's been really active the past like 6 to 9 months. About to fight again here in like a month or so. Okay. Matt's got a pretty good stable here. Some little guys though. That's my overall concern with Matt. I'm not sure the little guys are going to bring him in the cash flow. Although Casemiro, that could be his cash cow right there. Well, I don't know how much the Rat King's going to bring in.
Cash in that real nice $500K check. Cool.
Well, even Chocolatito, for how much we all love him, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know off the top of my head what his purses have been like. I haven't paid attention. But maybe Matt's thinking that Sean Porter's going to make him a ton of money right off the shoot with Crawford here soon. So I don't know. All right. And then Lex, what do you think was with the Amir Khan pick? That was an odd pick.
Maybe he attempts to stage a fight in Dubai or somewhere like that and get a lot of money. I don't know. I think the idea of Khan fighting Pacquiao or Broner is still pretty funny.
So the interesting thing about, if you haven't listened to the Sunday Puncher podcast before, the guys do a really nice job. They speak of, I think it's fair to say, all three of you, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if you look at all the promotional outfits, the big ones in boxing, you would lean with the way Al Heyman brings cards, events to the market, right? And fighters to the market. Is that a fair generalization?
That's fair. But I mean, whatever you say is right. You're the one who listens. I just speak and you tell me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it seems. And I think you guys are pretty open about that on the show. Cause what you just said rung a bell in my head. I was like, okay, I remembered that all three of you at one time or another talked about matching your own guys against each other, right?
Oh, my entire draft was to do Rosado versus Sergio Martinez. So the whole thing, that was my whole goal here.
Well, and it's a fair statement. Like, I think anybody who's of the people that we have downloading and listening to this episode, every single one of them would tune into that fight. That'd be a great fight.
Anyone who calls himself a boxing fan is tuning in for Rosado versus Martinez. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, that would be great. They're both so limited at this point that it would be excellent action. But I guess my overall point is, I think, promoters have always been trying to match their own fighters, but things have gone to the nth degree over the last couple of years. So it's tough though when you're only drafting 5 guys to make matches. You've only got 5 guys. How many matches are you going to make?
Well, I mean, we could have went 15, 20 rounds, but nobody wanted that. We just figured we'll cap it at 5, easy listenable length, and then I guess probably going forward, one thing we should do is like name realistic opponents that you think you could make for these fighters, and they may or may not be part of your stable. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, so full transparency, what Angelo was mentioning at the top of our show was my criticism of him right after of the show in general, I guess, right after I listened to it was, well, I don't think I actually specifically said. I was just like, what the hell are you guys doing over there? And just took a crack at him. But my specific criticism was, like, I felt like all 5 guys drafted for a cash grab, which is like, in 9 months, you're going to be out of business, right? These guys are all like 40 years old. And then I went to make my own list and realized that, the people I'd want on my team are all like 30 and up as well.
Well, if you think about it, like to get 3 losses and still be somebody to start a company with, that takes time. You have to have at least established yourself as somebody worth drafting. And that's like, it takes like 20 fights to do. Right.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it was short-sighted on my part, so I actually retract my criticism. However, now we're halfway into it, so I might as well just keep going.
Yeah, so You said that you thought of a bunch of fighters that we didn't even mention.
Well, okay, so one more little tidbit as far as these rules go for my tidbit's a phrase just not used enough anymore, right? Tidbit. So one more rule for me in my draft. At the end of the show, the guys basically emptied their lists out. So they had a draft board, each drafted 5 guys, and then all 3 guys just emptied their list, right? So between the 3 of them, I listed out on our show notes for me and Angelo 34 other fighters that
I'm
the guys
shocked.
mentioned.
I don't know how you did that. Like, did you remember? Yeah. Like, why didn't you just message me and tell me, like, yo, send me your list of all the fighters that were mentioned?
Yeah, no, I was just typing while I was listening. It was pretty simple, actually. Honestly, it took me like 2 minutes.
Okay.
It was really easy. But my point of listing them out for me and Angelo is that the 5 people that I draft cannot be included of those 34 either. So I'm taking those 34 completely off the board, drafting last, as well as the 15 guys that you guys drafted are off the board. And I'm going to draft by myself, and I'm going to smoke all 3 of you guys.
Oh, boy.
Ready?
Yeah. I struggle to think how you could top the great Derek Chisora.
Yeah, well, to be honest, that one's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie to you. All right, so, and just so if, as a listener, so you know, we share show notes, Angelo and I, and we both have the show notes in front of us. However, I did not include my 5 picks, so Angelo has no idea who I'm about to pick. Except, I'm going to break my own rule for my first pick. All right? I have no choice but to take one of the fighters that you guys mentioned because he's one of my top 10 like favorite all-time fighters.
Fair.
So just as a homer, I just have to be allowed. I'm glad you said fair because I was going to ask for your permission. I just have to be allowed to dig at least one guy off y'all's board. I don't remember who mentioned it on the 34 that were mentioned. So my number 1 pick, originally from Venezuela, fighting out of Japan, Mr. Jorge Linares.
So you criticized us for picking old guys, guys with no future outside of like one fight. You pick Jorge Linares. Okay.
36-year-old lightweight who in his last fight lost a 12-round decision, 116-112 across the board to Devin Haney.
But took the moral victory when he hurt Devin Haney late in that fight.
Yep. One of my favorite guys. He's got at least 2 to 3 more fights in him. And we're going to get him to a big money fight here within the next 2 years.
Yeah, that Ryan Garcia fight ain't going to be pretty.
Oh, well, I don't know. There's no doubting Linares' boxing ability. I don't think anyone's ever questioned that. It's his chin, right? I mean, he can't. Let's see. He's got
like
47 wins,
KO losses.
29 knockouts, and until the Haney fight, it was 5 for 5, right? It's 5 losses and 5 by knockout. Oh. So it was like all or nothing.
Yeah. But good pick. I actually considered picking him, but then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take Josecito Lopez. I can't let these guys take all the welterweights.
Yeah. Well, you'll see a theme through my 5 picks, and I have a bonus pick too.
Mm-hmm.
So through my 5 picks, it's going to be all action, all the time, and highly promotable guys. Going to make great fights. Going to make us all a lot of money. Me and me. My team. All right. So here's the challenge. So as I was thinking about my picks and how to go from here, and my picks really aren't in any order because I'm picking against myself, but this is how I would have my board of my top 5 guys. Is I had to get a heavyweight. I mean, heavyweights, that's where the money is. Any promotional company starting off that doesn't have a cornerstone heavyweight is really going to be in for a long haul. So after a thorough amount of research, I am drafting my number 2 position, current heavyweight champion of the world with a record of 32-4, originally from Syria, the Diamond Boy, Mahmoud Char.
Whoa. I was not expecting that.
The WBA interim heavyweight in recess. Or wait, interim heavyweight recess. Yeah, I think that's right. And the slayer of Chris Lovejoy, one of my favorite heavyweights.
I was not expecting Char.
Someone who will be in position for a heavyweight title fight within the next 18 months.
Definitely a first-round pick for our survived a gunshot wound draft.
Now residing out of Germany, lots of German heavyweights. Char is going to be in title contention here soon. Diamond Boy is my second pick. And my third pick, God, this one's great. This might be my favorite pick of, well, my fifth pick I'm pretty proud of too. All right. My third pick, also a heavyweight, only 29 years old, a household name in the United Kingdom after War Chisora, might be the most, after Chisora and Joshua, might be the most famous heavyweight in the United Kingdom. That's right. David the White Rhino Allen.
Oh my God.
19-5-2 is my third pick. Came back last week. The Rhino is back, unretired. And we are going to, not only are we going to start stacking wins, we're going to start stacking bands because Dave Allen is going to make us tons of money.
You better take him down to Big Punch.
Oh, listen, this guy's got, we just got to match him a little better. You're my matchmaker.
Big Punch.
He's on a 2-fight winning streak.
Against who?
Silence. So I'm very proud of my third pick. Someone named Andrea Pesky. I have no idea. I really don't know. But there's no one more famous in the United Kingdom. I can't believe none of you guys mentioned Dave Allen. We got to make money, Angelo.
Yeah. Was I supposed to also draft David Price?
Whoa. David Allen's going to put butts in the seats because of his fighting style and his popularity. I'm happy with my top three, even giving you guys the first 50 swings at the plate. I'm really happy with my crew. And it gets better from here. Ready? Pick number 4. We have another all-action fighter. He's been at the top of the hill multiple times in the sport. He's still only 32 years old. Super middleweight, 43 wins, 4 losses, 36 by thundering knockout. That's right, David Lemieux.
Oh, so I'm trying to guess them as you lay it out.
I know you are. That's
and
why
you
I'm
said, but the thing that threw me off was 32 because I was like, that's Arthur Abraham's record if I'm not mistaken. And then
Abraham's almost 40.
And,
He's
and,
over.
Yeah, then you throw the curveball in there. He's 32 years old. I'm like, okay, well, that's not Arthur Abraham.
Oh, David Lemieux.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. There's a whole promotional company in Montreal that's completely centered around David Lemieux.
Yeah, is that why they're taking him down to Mexico?
I don't even know what to say. I love Lemieux. I love him. There's so many fights we could make with Lemieux. Super middleweight. We could probably even make a middleweight catchweight bout with Lemieux. There's so much action we can make with Lemieux. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a name that I looked at but didn't make the cut.
Okay. I've got only 2 more picks left.
Wait, no, you only have one. Oh, wait, you have one in a bonus.
I've got a bonus. You guys almost did a bonus and then you called a halt to it, but I'm just going to. Someone mentioned, Lex wanted a bonus and Matt was all about it. And then Lex threw out, well, gosh, what name did he throw out?
Jorge Cota.
Yeah, I was going to say, yep. I got it right here. Cota. Oh, that's funny. And then you immediately put the brakes on the. after Jorge Cota ended the bonus round. Oh, that was great. Okay. I couldn't be more proud of my fifth pick. Gosh, I love my team. And my team rounds out perfectly at number 5 because we're going with a mere 27 years old. Again, probably one of the top 10 most famous active boxers in the United Kingdom. That's right. We are going with a middleweight with a record of 31-7, goes by the nickname The Savage, Sam Eggington, who just once again, this past weekend, engaged in an unbelievable blood and guts war. Every time this guy goes in the ring, it's just fireworks. And I couldn't be more proud to add Sam Eggington to my stable. Talk about butts in the seats. I've got Eggington as my headliner, Dave Allen as my co-headliner. I could throw a club show every other week in the UK.
You'll definitely keep hospital beds filled.
I'm printing money in Lancashire. Right now.
Yeah, at some leisure center in Lancashire. Yup.
And you know what fight we're gonna go with Eggington too, and we're going straight. We're on DAZN. We're going to DAZN. Me and Eddie. I'm atting Eddie on Twitter here as soon as we get done with this because we are going to make a catchweight bout about 158 pounds between Sam Eggington, and we're going to hold it in Spain. Tell me who we're going to fight.
You're not fighting Sergio Martinez. I was going to say that, but I thought you were about to steal my pick. Nah, Kerman and Eggington, like, you're trying to get somebody hurt here.
Yes, Kerman Laharana, or however you say his last name, and Eggington, and we're going to hold it about 158. There will be no defense other than the two men's faces. Yeah. And it's going to be an amazing fight, and that's how we're going to start it off. And then if people didn't know Eggington by then, they will. That's my team.
Leharaga does have some experience upsetting British fighters, so I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I was really hoping Hassan Moqueno had 3 losses. That was the very first guy I looked at, but
that's the thing. All the guys that would pop up in my head, and then I'd look them up, 2 losses, and I was like, "Damn, this would be a great pick if only they had lost more."
Yep, I know lots of 2-loss guys. All right, let me just mention one last thing. I'm trying to earn favor with any hipster listeners we have. I had a really hard time trying to fit this guy in my list, so my bonus pick is a featherweight out of Japan, Ryo Matsumoto, 24-3, 21 knockouts, 27 years old. He lost to Danny Roman in 2018 at Kurokian Hall in Tokyo, which is where they hold basically every fight like 3 times a week in Tokyo. And they came back kind of quick. 6 months later, got knocked out, but he's won 3 in a row now. And he's on the slate here, if I'm not mistaken, later in 2021. And he'd be a great young pick if I had one extra spot. But I'm trying to curry favor with the hipsters because I didn't take, I couldn't take Chocolatito or Sorung Vasai, or you didn't do any of that. You didn't pander at all.
No, I had to win money, but like I pandered to fans of boxing in 2012, like Gabe Rosado, Sergio Martinez, Josecito Lopez. Those are all fighters that were like peaking. Well, I don't know if peaking is actually the right word that we want to use here, but those are definitely guys that in 2012 certainly held the hearts or were looked back or were revered at the time, I guess we could say. Certainly, if you remember Josecito Lopez upsetting Victor Ortiz, this might have been 2011. I don't remember the exact year. But Lopez upsetting Victor Ortiz, earning that Canelo fight where Lopez was like, well, I mean, I guess I'll do it. And he moves up 2 weight classes to fight him. And the rest was history. So,
well, listen, Angelo, that ends my picks. I am now in basically in business. I like you. You and I seem to get along pretty well. I will no doubt offer you an opportunity to fight for the WBA title in recess. If you'd like to come over to Hamburg, we can get Dillian in a fight with Mahmoud Char. So
You must be
let me know
talking
what you're
about.
thinking about that.
I didn't pick Dillian White. He only has 2
Oh, I'm
losses.
sorry. I said Dillian White. Good grief. Derek Chisora.
Yeah, but Chisora, I would imagine that Char's people wouldn't want him to take that fight. I'm just saying.
Well, bring the heat. We'll see what you got.
Also, I believe Chisora is the A side there.
Listen, man. Belts matter. Have you heard that phrase before?
Only from Don Gilberto Mendoza.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, there's my team, and I couldn't be more proud of it. So,
Well, I mean, we have more of those types of episodes planned. We are in talks to do one more geared towards a club theme, but more on that will come soon. So I guess anything else to say, or should we move on?
no, let's move on. That's all I got.
All right. So, was there any, you said not a lot of stuff happened this weekend, but was there anything we should know about?
Well, one pretty big thing happened, and it was more news related outside of the ring than it was inside of the ring, but it fits within the current boxing landscape because all we've been talking about was drugs over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the highest level of the sport, and specifically drug testing and things of that nature. And I don't know, would you agree that this news flew pretty far underneath the radar screen?
I didn't hear about it at all. So yeah.
You didn't? Okay, that's
No.
interesting. All right,
Yeah.
cool. I always like to joke on our podcast that I feel like sometimes we follow different sports and news misses me that Angelo's wired into the back of a gnat's ass and stuff I miss that, and then vice versa. This maybe less important things in boxing that I'm wired in on. But we did have a fight on June 19th in Hamburg where 30-year-old Hussein Muhammad improved to 17-0 with 13 knockouts. He took a 10-round decision victory over 31-year-old Sanad Gashin Gun, better known as German heavyweight. And Gashi fell to 21-4 with 21 knockouts. I watched this fight in Hamburg, and it was a pretty impressive performance from Hussein Muhammad, 6'5", heavyweight, and it was really his first big step up in the heavyweight division. First name that, if any one of us looked through his box rec, would notice would be Gashi, and for some of us that's even a stretch. It's not as if Gashi's a household name, but Gashi has made a little bit of a name for himself just from his KO ratio, 21 wins and 21 knockouts, based on somewhat limited opposition. Well, the news came out. Oh, excuse me. The fight was for the WBC International Silver Heavyweight title, and the
Belts
fight
matter.
was part. Belts do matter. Not international is not even enough of a caveat now. We've got silver versions of the international version. Gotta love it. So the fight was part of the WBC clean boxing program. So as you might imagine, you know where I'm headed here, is that in the post-fight urinalysis, the German heavyweight who won the bout, Hussein Muhammad, popped positive for anabolic steroids. And I find it interesting that he popped in the post-fight urinalysis because, I mean, every fight in the world that's ever held has a post-fight urinalysis. I mean, I'm sure there's fights somewhere that slip through the cracks where post-fight drug tests aren't being taken. But, I mean, club shows in Kentucky have post-fight urinalysis. So the fact that that's the test that caught Hussein Muhammad was, pretty comical on its face, to be honest. And it produced a bad substance a banned substance for Muhammad. Now, according to the WBC regulations, and this is where the story gets even better, Muhammad is banned for 6 months because, according to their rules, he is a first-time offender, and the amount of the prohibitive substance could be due to, based on the WBC's investigation, contaminated supplements. Literally the oldest excuse in the book. The WBC has gone ahead after the conclusion of their investigation and declared the international silver title vacant at heavyweight. However, they don't have the authority to change the rule, the ruling of the fight, which was a unanimous decision win for Hussein. And the German sanctioning organization, the BDB, President Thomas Poots, said that they have an internal process and they will decide in accordance with their own statutes at the appropriate time. So that was just announced on Tuesday of last week, right before or right after we recorded our current podcast for that week. So the substance that was found in Muhammad was a couple of metabolites, which basically I'm not going to try to say, but they are banned anabolic androgenic steroids under the WBC clean boxing program. And one of them was a synthetic orally active anabolic steroid, a so-called designer steroid. One of the news reports out of Germany was it was often sold on the internet as a quote unquote dietary supplement, meaning you could purchase it over the internet. The sellers knew it was a designer steroid, but that was their way around being able to sell it on the internet or get it out there on the internet. Was they called it a dietary supplement. The other metabolite belonged to a group of anabolic steroids used as a doping agent to promote muscle building and improve, of course, physical performance. A couple of interesting nuggets was Muhammad decided not to open the B sample, which is a pretty rare occurrence when these things happen. Normally, the first thing that happens, right, is denial. The fighters say, I didn't do it. And then they want their B sample opened. Well, Muhammad declined to have the B sample opened and, however, strictly denied having deliberately doped. And then, one step further here, his manager, Muhammad's manager, Ahmet Oner, Turkish manager, confirmed that the heavyweight's A sample, of course, tested positive, but he says, quote, something was found in Muhammad that was probably made from unclean supplements.
Huh?
Oner explained what Muhammad was taking prior to the fight, all of which were in fact supplements. But then the manager says, ultimately in the end, something was found that was forbidden, and forbidden is forbidden. And Sanad Ghashi now is turning to his lawyers to get to the bottom of everything, which I understand. So they're claiming ignorance, don't know how that got in my body. That could have been a dietary supplement that was tainted. That whole, argument that has been going on for like a decade now.
So they're not denying that he tested positive is what
Correct.
I take away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue I have with this is that's a 6-month ban.
Right. Yep.
For an anabolic steroid. Like the anabolic steroids are like, I could be wrong here, but those are the bigger, stronger, faster type of steroids. This is not helping with recovery. It's not helping with stamina. It is, how do I hit harder?
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. I mean, I'm no expert on the topic, but I would agree with that general statement.
So what the hell is the WBC doing here? Now, granted, Well, no, I don't want to get into some long, drawn out argument over like the WBC here, but I just think it's kind of crazy that for a 6 months, like we've had longer bans for far lesser offenses.
And thinking about it for a heavyweight too, that's basically the time in between fights.
Yeah.
So it's essentially no ban at all, right? I mean, other than, he can still train. He can still train cardiovascular wise. Probably by the rules, I'm sure he probably can't spar, which, so then he takes an extra month and spars. It's literally not even a suspension.
Was in Germany, right?
Germany, yeah.
So I remember in 2015, Germany passed a law that basically made the punishment for testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs stiffer. That would include jail if you were found guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious if this guy is in any trouble with actually getting, or is there any potential that he actually gets in trouble with like the government?
Yeah, I don't know. The information on it was so scant. So there's nothing on the WBC website about this ruling.
So how did
nothing.
You find out?
I found out by being a follower of Sanad Gashi.
Gotcha.
And then there's only one other story that I could find, and it was reproduced on a couple of different German sites where I'm giving you the information I have here. And the BDB, nothing on their website. It's unclear. Well, they haven't made a ruling yet. I know that for sure because Gashi's been putting, these stories up on his Facebook page. So, but another interesting thing, Hussein Muhammad continues to post on his social media channels, and of course, no mention of it whatsoever. So, this is all pretty just dark. As you might imagine, Gashi's pretty upset. Said he'd been quoted as saying that the penalty is so low, it's ridiculous. It's a serious crime. I'm damaged by it. My sponsors are damaged by it. My fans are, and that's basically the end of that. So he thinks Hussein should have a lifetime ban, or Muhammad, a lifetime ban. But it'll ultimately come down to the BDB whether anything further happens to Muhammad. We'll see.
Yeah, one of the things about, and like, what is the disincentive, if that's even a word, but like, what is the disincentive for somebody at this level to not use PEDs if your suspension will generally be really the amount of time it takes for you to actually get a fight train and all that? Because this is essentially like a slap on the wrist, if anything, really kind of like a for appearance's sake type of punishment.
Yeah. And what do you, the fighters, athletes in every sport that do cheat have gotten so good at it with the information that's available and the people that know how to do this correctly, that you end up having this trace amount left, right, that they end up pissing hot for. And there's just no way to convict anyone of that, right? I mean, it becomes he said, she said. All you have to do is deny it. And what are they gonna do to you? I mean, like you said, it's 6 months. Now, sure, if you get, I didn't pull up the WBC's clean boxing program rule book, other than to confirm that, okay, their first step is 6 months. But so I suppose there's, let's say their second's a year and a half. I mean, you'd have to make an adjustment there. You don't want to piss hot twice, and then next thing you know, you're out for a year and a half. But for that first test, or that first popping positive for the first time, and getting 6 month banned, like you said, it's nothing. I mean, you might as well just juice to the gills. I mean, you're getting a slap on the wrist. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So I guess my takeaway is, let's just get them all juiced to the gills and just see what the hell happens.
All right. Well, any other news we need to know from this weekend?
So the WBC didn't have anything on their website. Oh, by the way, I'm not terribly outraged at the WBC by what they did. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous, but they're going to do what they're going to do. And speaking of which, not only did they not have anything on that Sanad Gashi on their website, they did have something on their website because a promotional poster of a Glenn Tapia fight that happened on Sunday in Dubai. Glenn Tapia, of course, probably best known for being a true blood and guts warrior. If not known for that, known for being essentially injured in a fight to the point where he had a positive result for bleeding on the brain. Is that right, Angela?
Ooh, that detail I don't remember, but I do know that he had an absolute brutal fight with James Kirkland where it was clear the fight should have been stopped in the second round, third round probably, but instead it went to the sixth, and Steve Smoger basically took a somewhat promising prospect in Tapia and effectively shortened his career.
Yeah, maybe I took it too far with the brain bleed. Perhaps I'm crossing my information. Regardless, I think most boxing experts or pundits agree that Glenn Tapia probably shouldn't be in the ring at this point, considering what he's been through in his career. But nonetheless, I'm not that type of guy. If the guy wants to fight, who the hell am I to say he's not? I'm just a fan of the sport. He did fight on Sunday. The WBC had a poster up on their news section of their website because the fight poster, Glenn's opponent had a couple of WBC straps wrapped around him, probably some sort of European, international, silver, Middle Eastern versions. And the WBC wanted to make it very clear that this was not a fight that they were involved in. Glenn won a first round TKO victory against someone named Narong Bunchan, never heard of, from Thailand. And I watched this fight live on a pay-per-view streamed over my phone. And I'll tell you, the way Glenn Tapia fights is exactly the way he fought in this 2 minutes of the first round, which is about how long the fight lasted. And remember that clip that went around about 3 months ago of these two, it looked like Chinese heavyweights or cruiserweights that were just standing in the center ring and punching each other in the face over and over again for like 60 seconds, and neither one of them fell down? Well, if you know that clip I'm talking about, that's what this fight looked like for 90 seconds. Glenn did not improve his defense, in case you were wondering. So the two of these guys just stood there and cracked each other in the head for 2 minutes, and then Glenn scored 2 knockouts and won. So while I wish he wouldn't fight, I'm not the guy to say he shouldn't be. So there we are.
Any other news from the week?
That's about it, Angelo. We got some stuff coming up this weekend, though.
Not even going to mention Farah won a decision.
Oh my gosh. The King's back. I'm embarrassed. I apologize.
You were just so excited to draft your own squad that you left out a day one guy in Saul Farah.
Saul Farah was on the pilot episode, the teaser, the trailer. And amazingly enough, the King returned Saturday night in Bolivia. Saul El Phoenix Assassino Farah went 10 rounds in Bolivia and took a win against a Peruvian fighter who actually himself fought last week in Bolivia and dropped a 4-round decision. It was a late replacement opponent for the King, and the King was kind enough to share with me who his opponent would be, as well as a stream link for the fight, which I shared in my Discord. So we were watching that live, some of us here on Saturday night. And for me, was really the highlight as Farah improves to 76-27-3 with the unanimous decision 10 victory over Peru's Yamil Subieta. And I find it interesting that Yamil Subieta is not even on BoxRec, but probably not that surprising when it comes to Bolivia. So now Farah confirmed at the end of the fight, interesting little nugget, that he has a fight already in the books in Colombia, and he will in fact be heading out here soon. So we'll wait for additional details from the King, but El Gran Campeon back in action this weekend in Bolivia. Thank you for that assist, Angelo. I'm embarrassed. I'm holding my head in shame right now.
All right. Well, what do we have coming up for this week?
So we just got a handful of things I just want to run over really quick before we get to our guest. We have a fight Friday night. Pretty slow day overall Friday, but we do have a nice card on Fights Night pay-per-view for $6 from Mexicali, right up the road from Big Punch. So that's at Fights Night pay-per-view. Look at the Stanza schedule in my link in my bio. And then we also have on Saturday night, former guest of the show, 6'4", 18-year-old super middleweight Sam Arnold, former U.S. amateur standout, 2-0 from St. Louis, now residing in Dallas. He'll be fighting down near Playa del Carmen in Texas on Saturday night. So stay tuned to the Stanza schedule for links to see Sam fight. And then Saturday, we also have live at Big Punch. Looking forward to that. Saturday afternoon, Fight Zone UK. Cash Ali in action Saturday afternoon in the U.S. Should be fun. And a rare pay-per-view, which would be Saturday kind of mid-morning in the U.S. from South Africa. And I always tune into South Africa because it's a fantastic boxing country, one of my favorites. Always produces great action. I think it's like $8 for the pay-per-view. And it'll be really fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Saturday, big day. Not a whole lot on Friday. But if you stay tuned and subscribe to my Stanza schedule, link in my bio, you'll have all the information you need.
All right. With that said, it is time to bring on our guest. Former American Hockey League player turned professional heavyweight, that is Hunter Warner. Warner, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
All right, the first question. In preparation for this interview, I looked at your Instagram. There's some boxing related stuff. You recently got married. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And there's some clips of you playing hockey and all that stuff. But then I see a picture of you standing in the middle of a boxing ring with none other than the heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury. So could you fill us in with what happened? You were playing hockey and then now you're standing in the ring with Tyson Fury. How did we get there?
Yeah, so that was pretty unique. My brother at the time was invited to come out and be in Tyson Fury's camp before the trilogy got postponed. So I was fortunate enough to go out there with him. Him, my dad, and our management team went out there, and they were sparring, and I was able to do some training with those guys, and go on some runs with them and kind of be behind the scenes, but be involved and see it firsthand. And that was really awesome. But I was just super happy for my brother to get that experience. And although I wasn't in the sparring, seeing it firsthand, and anytime you can watch the world heavyweight champion train behind the scenes, it's pretty special. And you can see why he's at the top, but there's a lot that you can learn from that just by seeing that firsthand. Almost you can learn more from watching someone that closely than you could being anywhere else around them. So it was an amazing experience, and I was really happy for my brother, and it was fun to be there.
So where did boxing come into your family? Because you played hockey. When did this sort of transition happen for you?
Yeah, so boxing came into my family because my old man, my dad, he was a professional heavyweight boxer, and he was originally a professional wrestler in the WCW, and he transitioned to boxing on his own and wasn't very experienced until his 10th fight. He just started boxing because he had a big name and started making a little bit of money. But Emmanuel Stewart actually gave him a call and had him come out to Kronk, and he trained out of Kronk. And then obviously under that training, he actually became a real solid heavyweight and started having some great fights. And then he trained us boys our whole life in boxing. We've been boxing our whole life. And the transition into boxing from hockey really kind of kicked off probably about 5 years ago, was when I knew I'd box at the end of my hockey career, whenever that would be. And just about this past summer, after the season, my dad said I was finally ready to make the transition. And with that being said, I trust his opinion because he's my trainer, and I wanted to do it a couple of years ago, but he said I wasn't ready, and he just wanted to see me a little better in the gym, a little heavier, and just ready for the heavyweight game.
So I got to ask, I feel like this is the question that probably everyone has. You mentioned hockey, boxing after you're done playing hockey. How many fights you get into on the ice? Did the training over the years of your youth into adulthood, did that work on the ice?
Yeah, it's pretty different, obviously, fighting on the ice than boxing. Just the whole circumstance of being on skates and you're tied up, kind of grappling a little bit too, and trying to get your free hand to throw some good shots. The thing that would translate the most from training in boxing to hockey fighting is just throwing a proper punch. Other than that, it's kind of hard to translate between boxing and hockey because you're on ground in boxing, you're going 3-minute rounds, you're jabbing, it's a sweet science. Hockey, you kind of grab on and wrestle around a little bit until you can get your hand free and start chucking. So hard to really relate the two, but definitely knowing how to throw a proper punch makes a difference because not everyone in hockey knows how to do that.
So what I'm fascinated to learn is, and I guess what I should mention, so I played hockey my whole life, and what I want to know is at what point in time as a professional hockey player do you learn how to fight? And this is just totally, I guess I probably just could have called Hunter and asked him that question round one, but that's what I'm like, how do you learn, how do you get to that point where, who teaches you that? How do you learn that kind of stuff? Because there's a lot of hockey fighting.
Are you saying like learning how to hockey fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I started learning how to really hockey fight at 16 because I started going to junior camps, and my dad, he was always telling me, like, make the first impression everywhere you go. So every time I went to a junior camp, the first thing I tried to do was get in a fight. If I could get in a fight right away, they'll remember my name, and then subconsciously they'll always be watching me the rest of the tryout. So it's a good way to make an impression. So I guess just by doing it is how you would really learn. You can train for it a little bit, but you just kind of got to start doing it, just like boxing. You start picking things up in sparring. The more styles you see, the more you can adapt on a night. So just by doing it, and I started doing it at 16, and obviously that translated really well into my hockey career.
So at 16 years old, you go into a hockey camp, you start a fight. You don't get in trouble for that?
No, because I was always trying out for these traveling clubs that were older, and it's encouraged. It's a part of the game, especially at that level. And especially being a younger guy, it's good to prove that you were willing to do it and that you also could do it. So it really favored me to show that side of my game.
So what you're saying is, as a 16-year-old, you were picking fights with grown men.
Yeah, my first fight, I actually knocked a guy out with the right hand, and I was 16, and he was 21 actually, and I didn't know he was a fighter. He was actually the team's fighter, and I was calling a guy out, and he happened to be a goal scorer. Those guys don't normally fight, but I didn't know any of these guys. They were all older, so he jumped over the bench and came and challenged me, and I ended up knocking him out and breaking my hand in that fight. And later on, I realized who it was, and I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't know what I got myself into.
Angelo, at 16, these kids don't even want. Most of those kids don't even want to check each other, much less, at least in the open ice, much less get into a fight. So that's pretty impressive.
So okay, so you said when you were 24, I think you said your dad had told you were ready.
Yeah, so I'm 25 currently, and it was just after our season ended, so I was still 25. He said, just based off of what he was seeing in the gym, that he wanted me to work on from the previous couple of years, that I was finally ready. In hockey, you train much differently, obviously, than you do for boxing, and he wanted me, like, outside the boxing gym even, he wanted me to, like, be different in the weight room, put some weight on me, start running more, and because I was boxing and doing hockey at the same time, this time he just wanted to see the result after doing just boxing for a little bit. And after he saw me kind of give up the hockey training and really do the boxing, and I was sparring more than I normally was, he was like, yeah, okay, you're ready.
Does that mean that you're done with hockey?
Yes. I mean, nothing's ever completely closed off, but right now I'm full steam boxing, and that's the only thing on my mind.
Did you have any amateur fights?
So I actually didn't, because we grew up in a small town, and even my older brother, who's pro currently, he didn't have an amateur fight till he was like in his mid-20s because we lived in a small town, and there was no amateur fights really near there or like local clubs to like train out of or like USA boxing clubs. So my dad was just training us on the farm. We had a little boxing ring on the farm, and we would travel and get sparring in the cities, but we were never like, he didn't really plug us into the amateur scene. So before my brother was going to go pro, he plugged in and did a couple amateur fights in his mid-20s, but had been boxing his whole life as well. He was going to turn pro much earlier than he did, and then he had some life stuff happen. He kind of got injured. So once he recovered from that, then he ended up turning pro much later, and he's 2-0 currently.
Have you done any sparring with your brother, or is it just purely training alongside?
We've sparred a couple times, a couple years back. It was more like working with each other than like real sparring. We usually just train together, but yeah, I don't know how that will be in the future. I think it's better we probably just like work alongside each other, and yeah, as of now.
How do I say this? What would you say like are the real differences between like what is considered hockey shape and then what's boxing shape?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So hockey shape is, don't get me wrong, you're still a conditioned athlete in hockey, but to be in boxing shape, you're in like the top tier of being in shape. I mean, hockey is more of like a sprint. You go out for a 45-second to a minute shift. So you're training to like up and down the ice, a quick sprint. Boxing is, 3-minute rounds, and that's where the running comes into play and building your legs. A lot of shadow boxing and really building those leg muscles to endure over round. Obviously all the sparring to really adjust to the 3-minute round, and just like accustoming your mind, if you start getting tired, how do you deal with it? Things like that. I think that I'm in 10 times better shape being a boxer now than at any time when I played hockey.
Was it hard to put on the weight? Because you said your dad wanted you to put on weight. But then if you're doing way more cardio stuff with boxing, I imagine that it kind of worked against you in terms of putting weight on.
Yeah, it actually was a little bit of a challenge because, like you said, like in hockey, I was training for like sprints basically, and now I'm running 3 miles twice a week, 3 times a week while trying to put on weight. But also in the same manner, the more you're training, the bigger your appetite is too. So I was eating a lot more healthy food, of course, but eating more protein, and the harder you train and putting good fuel in your body just kind of helped, and it worked.
And honey, you're 6'4", right?
Yep.
And you were about, as a hockey player, what did you normally walk around at, and then what's the goal for the heavyweight division, at least to get started?
Yeah, so I wrote like sometimes on the websites they have like my weight from when I was like 17 years old online, but I would walk around at like 230, 235 when I played hockey, and my dad and through our training, I'm walking around at 260, 265 right now.
Wow.
From your Instagram, you don't look like a small guy.
Mm-hmm.
You look like a freaking defenseman.
Good job, Angelo. You really picked that one up. Good job, buddy.
Which one? That he played defense?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I don't know what position you played.
I'm busting balls.
There's a picture of you. A lot of fighters, or you've heard this in fights before. He's never been cut. This is the first time he's been cut. How will he deal with the blood? Well, you have a picture on your Instagram of what I assume is either a stick or a puck hit you in the face, and you've just got blood pouring down the middle of your face. Yep. Could you give us a story of what happened there?
Yeah, so that was at the Exile Energy Center in a preseason game with the Minnesota Wild against the Dallas Stars, and my game's physical. So a guy was coming center ice, and I lined him up, and we actually smashed head to head. And both of our foreheads split wide open. Wow. And he was bleeding, and he actually got injured, so he's not in the picture. He was laid out a couple of feet away from the picture. And then Yeah, so our helmets smacked, our foreheads smacked, and caused huge pressure cuts. And then we actually ended up getting stitched up right next to each other and came out back for the game. He didn't, of course. He was injured, but yeah, so that was a pretty funny story. I kind of gave him a little tap on the back, but he wasn't too happy with me. So,
Well, naturally, I mean, you lined him up to Scott Stevens him, and
yeah.
he overshot it or something, and the heads clashed. Oh, so you played some preseason games. What was the skill gap like between playing in the American Hockey League versus like NHL?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is everyone might just be a little bit bigger, maybe a tiny bit faster and a little bit smarter. And by smarter, I mean usually the guys who are a little bit older, veterans in the league, they kind of do the right play 95% of the time, where a guy in the minors might be really working on his craft but make a little more mistakes, so he might do the right thing 80% of the time. At the end of the day, they're special humans in sports, and you're freaks, but in hockey you're only human, so you can only be so much better than other people. So a lot of it comes into the right opportunity at the right time to be at the top, or you just consistently have like crafted your game and perfected your niche, and you kind of do the right thing 95% of the time versus like 80 or 85. That's the biggest difference in my opinion.
I imagine that I would imagine there's a lot of boxers that don't necessarily have that experience as a pro, and they have to discover it on their own. But like you having competed at a very high level in another sport, like gets the difference of the levels. I'm sure you played in lower levels all the way up into the NHL basically, and you've seen the progression of skill. And like in the heavyweight division, I'm sure that's something that you're gonna walk into, where like the guys you face when you're in your pro debut will be different from the guys that you face when you're 10-0.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be huge for me, because maybe some of the guys, when they start debuting, like you said, unless they have a deep amateur pedigree, but if that's not the case, not everyone has competed at such a high level and has that like maturity with competing like within themselves to know how to handle themselves or conduct themselves under pressure or a bad situation or a complicated style that they're maybe not seen before. And I just feel like that will really help me transition into boxing too, being that I've competed and, very seasoned in my sport. I know it's not boxing, but I've been throwing a lot of curveballs and be able to perform under pressure, So I hope that I'm confident that it will transition well into boxing.
So have you been like a boxing fan your whole life, or is this just something that you kind of did and that's really it?
Yeah, actually our family's obsessed with boxing, and not so much even hockey. Like growing up, we didn't watch hockey. My dad did not know what hockey was. We grew up and we gather around the TV and we're watching fights. That's what we're doing. We weren't watching hockey games or basketball games or whatever. Our family was ordering the pay-per-views and we're watching boxing. That was our thing. We started playing hockey because we lived in a small town, and that's just kind of like it was a thing. But yeah, we were raised loving combat.
So what are some fond memories of watching boxing with the family? Who was fighting?
Well, actually, it's weird because we always were watching like Mayweather, which I don't even know why. We obviously love heavyweights, not to discredit the other divisions, but I just remember like we'd have friends over and because all of our friends didn't know boxing quite as much, so they wanted to see like Mayweather lose, just like the rest of the world, stuff like that. But we love watching heavyweights, man. Our family loves watching heavyweight boxing. It takes one punch to change the game, and that's our thing.
So your dad was a wrestler.
Yep.
Was wrestling part of your childhood and growing up?
No, not really. We think it's cool he did it, and we get a kick out of watching him doing his thing on YouTube, wrestling and whatnot. But to us, that's about it. It's nothing that we were taught or nothing that we really took into our own hands. Just thought it was cool that our dad was JW Storm at one point and got a kick out of it. That's about it.
So you guys didn't watch it when you were little?
No, Not really. At least I didn't. I don't know if my brothers did. I got 3 brothers. Maybe they did, but not me.
Angela, you know how all of us, and well, Hunter too, you know, all of us boxing nerds, you end up in different rabbit holes of BoxRec, and you find some
Oh yeah.
you find some funny pictures of fighters. Your father has hands down the best BoxRec photo. I think it's a top 5 BoxRec photo.
Yeah.
He's got a professional wrestling picture in his BoxRec photo.
Yeah,
It's spectacular.
He's got the leather jacket on, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe the ponytail rocking too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good. That's a good profile picture. I mean, he should put that on all of his social media.
I'll pass on the message.
If he's on social media, who knows? But this looks good. I mean, he was active as a fighter for a long time.
Yeah, he was around.
Do you remember?
In a small town. Yeah, I do actually. I was pretty young, but I just kind of remember his friends, with his training community, his sparring partners, his trainers and stuff, kind of being around. Obviously not super like vividly, I remember, but I mean, we bounced around. We were in Michigan, we were in Vegas, and also where we grew up on the farm. We always kept that house no matter what. So, yeah, we were wherever he was, and we met some good people. And yeah, my older brother would remember much more vividly than me.
So do you remember any of his wrestling career?
No, not so much, because all of that was done on the road. So like, it never felt like we really understood or knew what was really going on, because that's the traveling thing. And it was before I was really born, for the most part.
So what's your dad most proud of, his wrestling career or his boxing career?
That's a good question. I think the wrestling career was much more lucrative, and like he was on TV, so he was being seen by the world in his wrestling career. Like still to this day, he's bald now, but he had a ponytail and he was a wrestler. And still to this day, if we're out for a night, like it's not rare that someone says, "Hey, you're JW Storm." So I think that's pretty cool for him, that he was like, has more notoriety in that fact. But I think he's more proud of boxing because of like what it represents and all the hard work. And I mean, he trained with Emmanuel Stewart and all the like great names out of Kronk. I think that like really resonates well with him as he gets into his old age, and it's something he's really proud of, and especially that he gets to share that with us now that we're pretty big into boxing. And you know, my older brother and I are boxing, and my younger brother's had some fights that were non-commissioned, but so I just think he's really proud of that, and that he gets to share that with us.
Well, if we're talking non-commissioned fights, I think you've got plenty on the hockey, on the ice. So what is this going to be, you know, if we looking forward for your future, like what's going to be the situation in terms of like managerial stuff or promotional? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so my brother and I are signed to Hero Sports Management, and we're very thankful for that. I'm happy to be a part of it. As far as promotional, right now, we work with Corey Rapiz. He's our local promoter. He has fights out of Grand Casino Hinckley in Minnesota. And my brother's had 2 fights there. Would have had more, but then the COVID hit and all that mess. So right now, we kind of want to control what we can control, and kind of move how we want to move and where we want to move. That'd be a better question for my management team and my dad, who manages me and also trains me. So I'll leave that for them to kind of touch base on whenever they get a chance to speak on it.
And so when can we expect to see you?
I think that you could expect to see me probably sometime very shortly after the new year.
Okay.
My brother has a fight in October 22nd, and then he has a fight lined up for December as well. So it'll be a really great experience for me to be in 2 of his training camps and kind of firsthand do that, be in the corner at the fight, everything like that, just so I have a little firsthand experience, or a better experience when I go into my debut, kind of like I know how the training camp's going to be run by our father, and kind of what he did and see what he liked and didn't like, because I get to feel that if I'm involved with it. So Yeah, I think sometime very shortly after the new year, which is not too far from now.
Okay. Well, we won't keep you forever, so we're definitely looking forward to seeing your debut. I want to see how the ice fights translate into the ring. See if you could dust off the right hand and maybe make an explosive debut. Yeah. So we thank you so much for coming on. It was really cool talking to one of somebody who's actually played in the NHL. It's fun to hear the stories about your dad. So I'm not going to speak for you, Tim. I don't know if Tim wishes you luck, but I wish you all the best. Maybe Tim knows you don't need it, but I'm going to wish you the best of luck. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you turn pro and the progression of your career.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you for the well wishes.
Anything for you, Tim?
No, it's great to talk to you, Hunter, and the family are legends up there in Minnesota, starting with your father and now you and your brother. So we just look forward to watching your career get going. It'll be really fun. We wish you all the best, man. Thanks for coming to join us.
Yeah, thanks so much for the well wishes also, and thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure and an honor to be on with you guys, so thank you.
All right, that was our interview with Hunter Warner, who we can expect to see, as he said, in the ring at the beginning of next year. Tim, does it make you feel proud that we could potentially have a real exciting heavyweight prospect coming up who is from Minnesota?
It does. It makes me very proud. Minnesota's had some heavyweight bangers here over time.
Now, when you say bangers, what do you mean by that?
I mean, we've got recent PBC fighter Joey Abel, right?
I don't think he's a PBC fighter, but
not signed to the PBC, but fought in the PBC, right? We've got we had a Minnesota super fight between Rafael Butler and Joey Abel back in the day.
Uh-huh.
I think it's cool that my two worlds collide here with Hunter. So I fanboyed out on Hunter as a hockey player on social media before I knew he was making the transition into boxing. And so it was super cool to connect with him. And then when he told me he's getting ready to turn pro in boxing, my head exploded because those are my two favorite sports. Probably the same way Jeff Warner, his father, former ECW wrestler, turned boxer. There's your two worlds colliding. You're a big wrestling fan, right?
I mean, not exactly, but he was in WCW. He was like
WCW.
He's like a tag team champion for like a year.
Sorry, I said ECW, WCW. And there's a fight of his father, of Jeff Warner, on YouTube versus Bill Corgan that is spectacular. Shout out to Mike Altamura in Australia who sent it to me. It's kind of funny too. I told Mike that I was going to have that Hunter Warner, former pro hockey player turning pro, is going to come on our show and join us next week. When I was talking to Mike the week prior, and Mike said, ask him if he knows this guy. And he texted me this video, and he was serious, right? Like, does he know Jeff Warner? Because he's like, this Minnesota club fight is one of my favorite club fights of the late 80s. And when you think of Hunter's father as a professional wrestler and what a professional, like, heavyweight type body size wrestler looks like, that's what Jeff Warner looks like. I mean, he is chiseled out of stone. He'd have an ounce of fat on him, got to weigh at least 250. And it's just an awesome club fight. Now, sadly, Jeff lost this fight, so maybe Jeff and Hunter don't want me to mention that, but it's a really good fight. It's fun stuff, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Hunter's career get started. I think the fact that, I didn't want to pull the old Mike Tyson quote out that everybody beats to death. But honestly, the fact that Hunter's been in some very serious scraps, in the last 10 years of his life, got punched and bloodied and lost fights. And, you don't fight in hockey without losing fights. I think will go a long way for him as he gets started, So I'm excited to see it, man. It'll be fun. All
right, well, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you like the podcast, leave it a good rating, give us a 5-star review, tell people about it, share it on Instagram or Twitter or whatever social media you use. Tim, anything else?
That's it. No, thanks a lot, Angelo. Always love talking about this stuff with you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
All right. Till next time.